And now,
introducing the one, the only.
Let me introduce to you
lively talk with successful people, barely filtered. This is the Jenna Ben Show.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning into the Jenna Ben Show, guys. I'm your host, Jenna Bantamweight, and with us today, I have number 2 UFC Bantamweight with a record of 14-2, currently on a 2-fight win streak with a fight of the night, 2 Performance of the Night awards, ranked in UFC records number 8 for most strikes landed per minute with an average of 6.85, and number 8 for striking differential at 2.96. Welcome, Cory, the Sandman. Sandhagen, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. I'll be honest. I'm a little bit hungover still from Vegas. I went out there just for like it was probably under 48 hours. And I tackled a lot though. I saw my guys at Extreme. I saw, Merab Dvalishvili and Cody Stamen and, Coach Eric and Coach Eddie. And I recruited a couple. I got Joe Benavidez and Felder and
nice.
And some more good ones coming. Yeah. So, when I mentioned your name, they had some good things to say, and I'm going to get into that in a second. But first, how we doing today? How you feeling?
Yeah, today's good. I got back from LA yesterday. I was doing a podcast with Theo Von. Do you know Theo Von, the comedian?
I believe I know the name. I'm sure I know the face if I look him up.
So I was doing his podcast in LA, and LA was really nice. It's been snowing like crazy here. It was nice I think when we left on Thursday morning, I'm not kidding you, there was probably like 16 inches of snow on the floor that happened just overnight. And then we caught the plane, and then I was sitting on the beach the next day. It was pretty awesome.
Well, I'm mad that I missed you because I live in LA and you could literally be here in my studio with me in person.
I should have said something.
I know I didn't. You said you were traveling and I didn't connect but also I was in Vegas. So, and B, I'm learning through all of my guests and followers on Instagram that you guys have certain customs that I know nothing about when it comes to snow because I'm from LA. So shoveling and then the sand and the chains on the tires,
Yeah, those I don't know. So we give California people a lot of crap for not being able to drive out here, which is fair. But also I'm not really one to talk either because I've been in plenty of accidents in the snow. and I'm not bad ones, but I shouldn't be talking about bad drivers in the snow when I'm not really the best one in the world either. But yeah, it's an interesting place. Colorado, it'll dump a foot, and then the next day it will be, I'm not even kidding you, 60 degrees, and it will all be melted by the next day, and then it will do that once every couple of weeks. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting, but it makes for nice snowboarding and stuff.
Yeah. Who do I know? Who have I interviewed out there? I think Rocky Pennington lives in Colorado. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think she's down in the Springs.
Yes. And then Neil Magny, if I'm wrong.
Neil's on our team also. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I love
Neil's
Neil. In fact, the second glove in behind me is Neil Magny's. He's been on my show several times, and yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. Neil's Neil's a good dude. Neil's he's the person that you strive to be, Aww, he's just so nice. He's the nicest dude ever.
He's nice. And then so he fought Chiesa, who was on my show a bunch too. And I was I didn't, what do you do? Because when you come on my show, you're on Team Jenna. I just support you inherently, it's just you're in the club. And so now then they fight each other and I'm I wish you both the best of luck, Yeah. And of course I was happy for Chiesa, but then I was sad for Neil. And I'm it's part of the game, but I can still have my feelings, right?
Yeah. You just can't watch those fights. Can't watch those fights where you care about both people.
I mean, I literally wish them both well. And then I congratulate the winner and I check on the person who didn't win. Cause I'm
Yeah.
Okay. So let's jump into your story. So here on the Jenna Ben Show, I talked to my guests about how they got started, how they got into the UFC, biggest challenges along the way. Because of your background in psychology, we're going to dig into that as well, and just kind of what lies up ahead for you. Cool. So you're 28 now, but take us way back to when you were a kid growing up in Colorado. what were you like? What was your personality like?
Yeah, I was really quiet. I was
Mhm.
also a really small kid. Like the doctor told me that I was only supposed to be 5'2" until yeah, until I was I think like 16, and then I just grew a lot in those couple of years. But yeah, I was a really little kid. I played and really quiet, like really an introverted kid. But I did play like a ton of sports. Basketball and soccer were the two ones that I played most growing up.
Mhm.
And then yeah, I had like nothing really exciting growing up. I grew up in Aurora, Colorado, which is just right outside Denver.
Mhm.
Was on like some really, just we were like a basketball family. My sister played basketball also, and that was like our thing. And then when I got into high school, I kind of stopped liking it, and I started getting into MMA and watching MMA on TV and stuff. And um, I just saw it. I liked it. I had no idea what jujitsu was. I had like no idea how to choke anyone other than, just like grabbing them like this.
Yeah.
I thought that's how you choked people out. But so I saw it on TV. And I just, I loved it. And basketball was getting really old for me. I was kind of getting really burnt out on that. So my senior year, I signed up at a gym, and then that's when and then I was pretty decent off the bat, and then I really loved it too. So I think I've been at the gym probably 2 times a day, almost every day since I signed up at the gym.
Wow. What did your parents do for a living?
Yeah, so both of my parents work for the post office. My dad was a postal inspector, so
Mhm.
he was like he would catch people that were stealing mail or mail-in drugs. And then my mom
Wow.
was just a salesperson for the post office. So, pretty normal stuff. My parents traveled a lot when I was growing up. It was usually like one of them in the house at a time, and they kind of like alternated traveling. And so it was a lot of time with like me and my sister. It was a lot of time just me outside playing with my friends and stuff. I wasn't a huge video game guy.
Mm.
I grew up in like a neighborhood where you could like ride your bike wherever you wanted to and go hang out with your friends. It's like super normal stuff. Whenever I get
Mm.
asked this, I almost feel like I should make something up to sound a little bit more no, to sound more interesting. But as far as growing up, like it was just sports. I was a really small kid. I was a pretty aggressive kid.
Mm.
Um, I was I was quiet, but I had a bit of like a temper, and I was super competitive too in all the sports that I would play also. So um, yeah, I was just a normal kid who liked sports and who really hated losing.
Yeah, well, so you built your work ethic young.
Yeah, very young. So my mom is from Queens, New York. My grandma and grandpa are from Ireland. They were immigrants from Ireland. Very poor, when they moved here. My mom has four brothers and sisters, and um, so my mom's work ethic is, by far the hardest working woman. I know everyone says that, but like I said, my parents were in and out all the time, traveling, working. Taking care of us. And then my dad was the same. My dad grew up on a farm in Iowa, and then he was working a ton also. So I think that that's just a bit of like a natural thing for me. Like I
Mm.
can't really like my parents don't chill. Like
Yeah.
my dad chills a little bit now, but they don't really chill. And I'm a bit like that too. Like I like I don't. It feels really weird to not do anything with my day. um and yeah, that's certainly where I got my work ethic from, because those two, like even my dad's 70 years old. I have an old dad.
Mm.
Even now, my dad's been retired for quite some time now, but like even now, like when I go to the house, he's doing something that he doesn't need to be doing, that just to
Like
keep
finding
himself busy.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, or like vacuuming again. It's like, man, you don't need to be vacuuming again. But yeah,
That's funny.
that's the type of family I come from.
What was your first job?
So I had two. So actually, yeah, speaking of working hard, I had a I was a when I was 16 years old, or maybe I was 15 actually, I started working at a daycare. just like an after school program at the old elementary school that I used to go to. So I used to walk from my high school just to the elementary school, and then I would work there for a couple hours until they closed. And then on the weekends, when I think I was 16 when I started this job too, on the weekends when the Broncos would go play, I was a food prep and a food runner at where the Broncos would play. I forget what the stadium is called now, but back then it was called Invesco Field. So I would do that on Saturday and Sunday, where I was cooking and running food all over the stadium on Saturdays and Sundays during the games. And then Monday through Friday, I would do the daycare thing. And then usually after daycare, it would end at 6. And then I would go to basketball from like 7 to 9. And then, yeah, those were my days. And I did that, I think, until I was off to college.
I've talked to you for 10 minutes and we already have so much in common. This is tripping me out. So I used to play basketball growing up as well.
Nice.
I know I don't look like it, but I did. And I worked with kids after school, and I studied psychology all the way to the PhD level, but a little
nice.
different. Yeah. I didn't finish, but I started and I got the master's. So
what were you thinking to do with it?
So, I was actually studying for the law school entrance exam, which if I could go back, I kind of wish like I stuck with that. But the guy he was a forensic psychiatrist, and I was running his operation, and it was a new job, and I would jump on conference calls with him and the client, and like totally inappropriate, but I would just jump in and be like, hey, why don't you guys do this, and help them with strategy. And he's like, A, don't do that. But B, you're really good at this. And he's like, if you go and get your PhD, I'll partner with you. And the guy was charging about $700 an hour. I mean, I would see like 6-figure checks coming through all the time. So I'm like, holy moly. Okay. No one's ever said that to me before. Why not? So, started with the master's, got into a good doctoral program, did it for about a year. And then I reassessed, and I'm like, I would love to be a forensic psychiatrist, or even like a psychologist, or even a clinical psychologist, but I couldn't hang with the research, and I'm a little bit more assertive and business oriented. So, like academics just have a different vibe, and that's not my vibe. So, so
are you into all those murder mysteries?
I mean, 1,000. It's like, I would solve them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Have you seen any good ones lately?
No, you know what I noticed? My cortisol levels, like my anxiety will increase with that stuff. And so I've been reading up on this too. Like what you take in it really affects your psyche, your energy, and all of that. So I've been trying to kind of like, what's really good for me is The Office. I would just watch The Office on loop, it would be like in the background while I'm working or whatever. And, it's just kind of like that chill, nothing to stress you out kind of stuff.
Nice. Yeah. I'm a bit the opposite. I like watching really stressful things. They're the only things that I feel like keep my attention at night. Like when I come home from training, the only things that I feel like can keep my attention are things that like, are like very exciting, or else I'll just be on my phone. Like, and I don't like being on my phone as much as I can. So, it's like I need really exciting, the complete opposite as you.
That's funny. I mean, I get into Dateline, don't get me wrong, but
yeah, me and my girlfriend, we, I'd be lying if I said I didn't watch The Bachelor with her on Monday nights also. Not that that's like a super exciting, violent or action packed thing, but it's definitely something that like, for whatever reason, will like just capture your energy,
100%. I just started the new season of Temptation Island, and it's so wrong for like my educated brain, but I'm like, okay, what's going to happen next? Okay. All right. So I have so much I want to talk to you about. So you were an athletic kid, and then kickboxing caught your eye, right? You won multiple WKA titles, including the world title, and then you decided to take on MMA. So you said that you were watching MMA on TV. What fighter caught your eye?
So it was like that WEC generation, Faber, Cruz, Aldo, Cerrone, Eddie Wineland. I used to really like Eddie Wineland. I was a bit of like a metalhead, not too much of like a metalhead, but and so he really, I felt like I had some rapport with him. But who else? Those are, I think, the main people that I used to watch in the WEC. But more than anything, I mean, that's who kind of got me in the gym, where I was like, oh, fighting's actually like there. It's not just, kids fighting in the locker room, which is like what I saw at school. It was like, very cerebral. And then I was like, oh, okay, I can like this. And then I signed up at Nate Marquardt's gym. So I immediately just signed up at a really, really good gym. And then the head striking coach there, his name was Christian Allen. And me and him got along really good right off the bat. And he was one of the top fighters out of Colorado locally too. So, he was a bit of my idol when I first signed up, and he was a bit of everyone's idol when I first signed up too. So, I give a lot of like credit to like, watching those guys and bringing me in the gym, but it's definitely my coach, Christian Allen, who kept me there and who, like really mentored me and inspired me throughout those years.
I love that. And you're still in touch?
Yeah, he's still my coach. Yep. 12 years
coach.
later. Yeah. 12 years later, and he's still my coach. So, yeah.
How does that compare? Like, so you said you have a girlfriend, and then you have this like longtime love of 12 years. I mean, he's got to be like family at this point.
Oh yeah. I mean, he came to LA with me,
Nice.
When I get a +1 to go places, it's, it's either him or Erica. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting, because I mean, when we first met, I was 17. So, he was like, I just want to be exactly like Christian, and then it goes like that for a few years. And then it becomes, oh, okay, now we're kind of friends. You're not just my coach. And then it kind of becomes like, oh, now we're really good friends. And like, oh, now we're kind of doing this thing together. And yeah, I mean, you can't really describe it, like it's one of those where when you really sit and think about like how grateful you should be for relationships like that, it's really special,
Totally. And I can see that you seem to be kind of a stable, consistent guy. So like the fact that you have 12 years with him and the relationship has flourished instead of been like on the rocks. And, that's great. There's something, you meet people who don't have consistency in their lives, and it's almost very apparent, but there's something very, you're very even tempered. And I think that probably contributes to your success. Would you agree?
I think I'm even tempered depending on how much weight I'm losing, but
Yeah.
no, I'm kidding. Yeah. I'm really level-headed, I don't get too up about things. I don't get too down about things. And I think that when it comes to relationships, I think that there's a way to be honest and be really kind about it. And I think I'm like, kind of decent at doing that too. So I don't have too many relationships that, aren't still around.
God, it's like you're seeing into my life right now. I agree with you. I think that niceness, like kindness, is undervalued and underrated, and I think that you get to know a lot about a person when there's conflict in interpersonal relationships, not in the fight game, because it's different. So yeah, I think that's very valuable for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're like totally diving into psychology. I was going to ask about your parents' reactions to you getting into MMA, but actually, let me ask that, because I don't know. It seems misaligned. What did they think about it as a career?
As a career, at that point, I was pretty good. Like when I decided, like, hey, Mom, Dad, like I'm doing this. I was actually pretty, I was good, and they knew that I was good, so they were like, okay, we're on board with this. But initially, I remember my mom making one comment one time. I forget what she said exactly, but she was like, I forget the words exactly, but it was something along the lines of like, oh, you're doing this because we messed up something, I was like, I don't think that that's true, but maybe, like deep down, something in there is maybe true about that. But that was their reaction to it at first, like a lot of confusion, a lot about like, why would my son want to, because I know that to a lot of outside people, it's people hurting other people. And, that's what it is. But there's also a deeper connection to other things that happens through that. So they thought that they kind of, made some mistakes, and And I was like, no, like this is just something that I enjoy doing. I know it's weird, whatever. And then, you know, I was good at it. Like, I think they wouldn't have been as on board if I was getting like beat up as often as, you know,
Yeah.
but yeah, so they're on board. My mom loves it. My mom, well, you know, like she's gonna watch this interview. She's gonna like she knows
Aw,
more
hi,
about
Mom.
she's yeah, she's gonna know more about what's going on in MMA than I know about what's going on in MMA. Like when I go and see her, they only live about 20 minutes from me, so when I go and see him, I mean, she'll like bring up like, hey, did you see this guy's fighting this guy? Blah, 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 you know, like she
That's so
supports the team.
cute.
She loves it. Yeah. My dad hates it though. My dad can't stand it. My dad he likes it, but he gets so scared when I fight that now he can't come on any of the fight trips. Not that like any crowd is allowed, but even before when we were allowed to have crowds, he doesn't come because he just gets so scared. Like my
Like
sister and
something's
mom
gonna
will
happen
tell
to
me,
you?
yeah, I mean normal parent stuff, you know. He's really scared. He's really worried about me, and he's a pretty anxious dude as it is. So um, but no, my mom loves it. My dad probably wishes that I was doing something different.
That's so funny. It's like you would expect the gender roles to be different, but well, at least mom's loving it. I think that's super cool. Al Iaquinta's parents are super like he tells me that his mom also will be like, "Did you hear what Joe had to say about whatever Joe Rogan?" You know, it's really
Yeah,
cute.
yeah. Must be a New York thing. I think he's from there too, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah, Long
Yeah,
Island.
yeah. My mom's from out there also. So
Interesting. All right. So, where in all of this is your degree in psychology, like time wise?
yeah. So I started going to CU Boulder when I was 18. I moved up there. Started training at the Eastons up in Boulder, and then that's kind of how I got connected with Trevor Whitman's old gym, Grudge, because Easton's and Grudge was kind of a big team back then.
Mhm.
And that's kind of where I started getting, you know, really comfortable training with really good guys. I would say is definitely in that time period of college. But yeah, so I was a psych student. I didn't really care to go to college, to be honest, that much, but my parents really wanted me to, so I did. And then all of my classes, everything that I took were just classes that fit into my workout schedule. So I was taking like 8 a.m. classes, and then you know, I don't even remember too much about school, to be honest. I always joke that like I didn't make any friends in college. I maybe made like, you know, 5 6 friends in college, just because outside of the gym, that is. Inside of the gym, you know, obviously I made a lot of friends, but no, college to me was, how do I make my classes centered around my workout schedule so that I can do that. And then uh, I would ride my bike to the gym in my gi. I would be strapped up
No.
in my gi, ride my bike in Boulder. And Boulder's a hilly city. It's like up, down, up, down, up, down. So uh, that was fun, actually, now that I'm thinking about that. But that was all that college was. I went to school for psychology only because I was interested in social work.
Hmm.
Um, and then after I graduated college, that I started working at a place called Mount St. Vincent's Home, which is a residential treatment facility for kids that have histories of trauma. So I was
Hmm.
working there about 20 to 30 hours a week after college. And then actually I was doing it for a good bit, even while I was in the UFC. I actually just resigned maybe a few months ago,
Hmm.
just because I wasn't there enough uh, to feel like I was doing anything. And you know, I think I was kind of being a pain in the ass for my supervisors because my schedule was so limited now.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I did that for a solid 4 or 5 years, and that was like I learned a lot about myself in those years. The facility that I worked at was really good. They trained us really well. I learned a lot of like therapeutic stuff, you know, for other people, but also for myself too. And that was a huge part of my life. So that's kind of why I got into psychology. And then yeah, I was working there all the way up until a few months ago.
What was your biggest takeaway psychologically from the experience?
At the treatment facility. It was that we're all just kind of doing things that help us survive, and some things help in certain environments, and then some things can be very detrimental in other environments. And life is kind of figuring out uh, how to best survive in the environment that you have,
Mm.
that, but also learning like a lot of like triggers, like I wish I always say, like, I wish that the things that are taught to the kids at Mount St. Vincent's Home were taught to every kid in the US, because they teach so many like self-regulating techniques. They teach so many like, oh, hey, I'm pacing around and I'm getting very upset at just something very minimal right now. It's not the case like that always. So what is going on with me today? And then it's like, oh, I have a meeting with my foster parents later. And it's like, oh, well, that makes total sense. So just little things like that. I would say that those are probably the two biggest things, where it's like when I catch myself being upset about things that are just very minimal, I start to be like, oh, well, it's because I'm worried about, this fight coming up, or I'm worried about, my bad day in training from earlier, or whatever. And then that survival thing too is huge too, where it's like in different environments, you just need different survival techniques.
That's so interesting. So now, once you've addressed the root of your concern and anxiety, how do you handle it? Like, how do you stop it from taking over your world?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of meditation. I wish that that worked every single time. So a lot of it is just dealing with it.
Yeah.
It's it's not easy being a fighter. It's not easy being a lot of things, I know. But it is stressful just knowing that you have to do something that could cause you a lot of harm, and you have to cause a lot of harm onto someone else. So that can be very wearing on you for an entire training camp. But I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of journaling.
Hmm.
If I can't get the thing out of my head, like I'll do a lot of journaling. Um, those are probably the two biggest things. If I find myself, can you hear my dogs right now?
Yeah. It's okay.
They're crazy. They do that when we leave. They don't know that I'm home, but so I'll do a lot of journaling. I'll do a lot of meditation. If I catch myself being really nervous about the fight, I'll just do a lot of visualization, and then I'll visualize even like the outcome of winning, which really puts me in a better mood.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's pretty much those three things, really simple things, but they go a really, really long way.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to dive into a little bit more psychology, but I want to get through the evolution of your story. So you made your MMA debut with LFA. You lost your first fight via unanimous decision. I mean, that had to have been like an oh shit moment for you. Like, you're just getting your career started, and then, did it make you kind of reassess your path, or what were you thinking?
Oh, absolutely. Especially because my identity was locked in with being a fighter.
Yes.
Like that's like what I was. I think when you start I mean, all teenagers have to go through this like process of let me be part of this group, and that was like my group. And so when I
Yeah.
lost it, it was a big deal to me. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's when I got really into a lot of Eastern philosophy, a lot of like a lot of meditations, and a lot of just being able to quiet the mind, and just I know everyone talks about it now, but and it might sound a little corny, but like the dealing with the ego stuff and all of that. So after I lost, I see it every single time. Any one of my teammates loses, anyone that I am cornering loses. They go through this process of like, is this what I need to be doing? Or is this
Mhm.
what I should be doing? Because losing really hurts in this sport. Like it really, really hurts. And that one really, really hurt, especially because I think I was super close to getting signed to the UFC. I was like 5-0 at that time, and I'm pretty sure if I would have won that one, I would have got signed. Thank God I didn't. Um, and uh, and yeah, so I spent maybe I would say about six months in the mountains, like Thursday to Sunday. Me and my buddy would just go up to the mountains, and that's what I was doing. If I wasn't at Mount St. Vincent's working, I would do that. I was doing that for about 6 months, and like I said, just reassessing what the ego is and reassessing like what my identity is. And is Cory just Cory the fighter, or is Cory someone different? And so I did a lot of that. And I spent a lot of time hiking a lot of 14ers and going camping. And that's when I learned a lot about myself. And when I came back to fighting, I was doing really, really well there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I lost again just recently, and kind of had to go through that experience again, because sometimes you need reminders. I think that the more connected I can be with me, the better I do in fighting and in life just in general. And when I start to get off the path a little bit too much, I feel like I get reminded. And that first loss was definitely one where I got reminded, and so was the second one that wasn't too long ago.
I noticed that very successful people get their validation from their success. And it's so weird because it's something I think that's happened their whole lives, but then they start working and then it clicks and they're like, wait, I'm good at this. And then they become better at it. So then the validation comes from either like the money or just the feeling of winning. And then when you stumble, it can just shake up your entire world. And so you said you were going to the mountains and kind of like working on yourself. Were you able to remove the level of importance that winning in the UFC gives you and validate yourself in other capacities in order to feel fulfilled?
Yes. It's kind of been a long time since then. I wish that I was writing stuff down more a little bit from before. But I do recall having the really lucid thought of, okay, if you're going to do this, it can't just be because you're good at it and because you enjoy the feeling of winning. Like that can't be a reason, because if you lose again, it's going to hurt just like how this one hurts, And I remember having the lucid thought of being like, okay, because it was also a big deal too, though, because I thought I was about to get signed to the UFC. And, I had all these expectations of, okay, when I get signed to the UFC, I'm not going to have to, I won't have to live with my parents anymore. I won't have to do X, Y, Z anymore. Like I'll kind of be set up with money, and I'll be okay. And then, so I had to reevaluate that and be like, wow, I lost. That means I need to string a couple more wins together. That could take a couple years. And then what if I lose again? That could take a couple more years. So I had to ask myself, like, okay, are you willing to do this for however long it takes in order to like get, accomplish your goals? And you want me to tell them to shut up really quick?
You can, I don't mind.
Okay. And then I remember in my head, I go, okay, I'm willing to be homeless and live in a box on the corner in order for me to do this every single day of my life.
Wow.
And I remember thinking that, and I still remember that day. And it was, that was like a really powerful thing, because that was, like that told me that, okay, I love this enough for it not to be about anything other than me just loving this sport and me wanting to get good at it.
You kicked it into high gear after that. You're like, I lost. That shit's not going to happen to me again. You won your next two in LFA. Boom, you get your UFC contract. And like, how did that unfold? How did you get your contract?
Yeah, I fought like the Nate Diaz prodigy guy. He was some guy from Nate Diaz's gym. And I beat him pretty quick. And then as I was taking my hand wraps off in the back, they were like, hey, the UFC is on the phone. And I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, hey, can you fight next week? And I was like, absolutely. And then so I fought on Friday for LFA, took a couple of days at home, and then they fly you out Tuesday. And then I was on the plane on Tuesday doing all the UFC stuff right after fighting. And then, and yeah, that's how that happened. I went from fighting on Friday to just fighting that very next Saturday too. So yeah, that was super exciting for me. Obviously, anytime you get the UFC call, I can, one of the, it's the call, it's like your life. You wait for that for a really long time. So that was really cool, especially to have that after like such a cool, quick win that I had over a guy that was supposed to be pretty good.
Okay. Now I was going to ask you what felt better, your WKA title or the call from the UFC, but it kind of sounds like, given the fact that you got the call right after a win, I mean, that was just such a moment in time for you.
Yeah, it was a UFC. It was a UFC call for sure. I don't think too many things will top that. And then I think top the first time that I walked out in the UFC, that was really really cool feeling. Also, with the WKA world title though, I actually went out there all by myself. So I was on the US team, but I mean, I didn't bring any of my coaches just because I was like, man, I can't really afford to buy you a ticket and a place for you to stay for however long. So those kickboxing tournaments though, like they'll make you feel like a beast when you win those things, because those things are like you're fighting. I think I fought I want to say only twice in one day, but it was supposed to be 3 times, but they were all backed up. So I mean, after you fight 2-3 times in a day, like you're feeling really good about yourself after you win 3 times, so
Yeah.
So the WKA one was cool, but also at the same time it was like I had to kind of go through that with myself, so I didn't really have anyone else to really enjoy the experience too much with. I definitely made some friends, but
Yeah.
yeah, that was that experience.
Okay, so now you're in the UFC and you're kicking butt. If you didn't lose to Aljamain Sterling, you would still be undefeated in the UFC. Your win streak lasted 7 fights, and 5 of those were in the UFC. And so I want to dig into like the roller coaster of winning versus losing, because I know how heavy it is. And it's funny that I can talk to 10 fighters about this and they'll all have something different to say. So I'm curious to hear your perspective. So now the pressure in the sport is heavy, right? You literally get locked in a cage for like 15 to 25 minutes. And the pressure ranges from, let's go all the way out. So then like the general public just watching, to social media where they have access to you. And then there's like the actual media judging you. And then, there's like your friends and family and, your girlfriend. And then you, when you look in the mirror, and your corner, of course, like there's so many people kind of relying on you to secure the win. And then if you don't, they're going to come down on you and you could end up in someone else's highlight reel. And like, there's a lot, which you're obviously aware of. So how would you describe like the highest win versus like the lowest loss psychologically?
Yeah, losing, I think the feelings of losing definitely, at least for me, trump the feelings of winning. Like winning is great, but losing is terrible. Like losing is, to me, one of the worst things that can happen to me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm not okay with losing. Like when Aljamain choked me, I was I like lost a lot of sleep over that. I was really upset about it. I was really kind of confused about it, and because everyone goes into a fight 100% in their mind thinking that they're going to win, or at least I do. I don't know if everyone does. So when it doesn't happen that way, it shakes you up a little bit.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't anticipate or expect anything to change with me winning a belt or with me winning any fight ever. Like I'm sure that it's going to come with its life perks or whatever. The more you win, the better, whatever. I don't care for any of that, and I don't expect any of that. I want to win for me. I don't want to win for any higher purpose. I don't want to win so that I can have a bigger platform, so that I can voice my whatever. I want to go into the cage and just beat every single person, and that's what I want to do. So when Aljamain beat me the way that he beat me, that was 100% not okay with me. And I had to figure out what the reason was, and I had to attack that reason like it was going to take my life, and take my dreams away from me. It was just I just didn't go in at the level of intensity that you need to be in when you're in a fist fight. That was my major error in that fight. And there's a number of reasons for that, but that was my biggest fault in that fight, hands down. It led to a number of technical errors, but the biggest thing is that I was just, I was like way too calm walking in there. I was way too flat. I wasn't ready for the level of intensity that Sterling brought into the fight. And all the props to him too for knowing that, because I didn't, I've had success in the past with not having to do that. So I attacked that. I got really good at, I don't care what type of day I'm having. If it's sparring day or if it's a hard training day, I'm getting myself to a level that feels like a fight, and I'm doing that every single sparring session. So I think that we've definitely seen that in the last 2 fights that I've had.
Yeah.
Where I'm not going in flat. I'm not going in to play around. I'm not going into, whatever XYZ reason other people fight for. I'm going in and I'm trying to hurt the person, and I'm trying to take them out, and I'm trying to win, because I'm 100% not okay with me standing in front of another man and that man beating me up. Like, that's just something that I'm not okay with. And that's my main motivator. I don't care, I really don't care or expect anything to change about my life, whether I win or win a world title or whatever. It's strictly just, this guy's not going to beat me up. Like, he's not better than me. I'm better than him. And he needs to know that. And that's why I fight.
I don't know if you had a chance to read any of the commentary made by him after your win. But I wanted to share a little bit because I thought it was so impactful. So you knock out Frankie Edgar 28 seconds into the first round. I mean, he face planted and knocked out cold for minutes. And he was quoted saying, "I'm going to be on this guy's highlight reel forever, probably end up on the knockout of the year list." And he said to MMA Fighting, "I didn't really come to until I was in the back. That is the first thing I remember. I'm sitting around, the doctors going through that whole process with them. Mark and Ricardo are next to me. And I'm like, 'Mark, what happened?' He's like, 'You fought.' And I kind of figured that, but I couldn't remember who the F I fought. I'm like, 'Who did I fight?' He's like, 'Sandhagen.' I'm trying to remember training for the guy, and I could not remember training for him. Since when was I supposed to fight him? I thought maybe I just took this fight on short notice or something." He's like, "Bro, 2 months. You've been training for this guy for 2 months. I just couldn't wrap it around my head." And so, you got him good. And as you're describing what you don't want to feel, I'm thinking about his words, and I'm like, that's got to be what you're saying. You just never want to be in that position.
Yeah. And because that's what it is, that's what it is. It's like serious, like what we're doing is serious. And it's not like other sports, if you're a basketball player in the NBA, you don't walk into a game scared that, or even with the thought of, oh, I might get knocked out this game. Like, how many times is that going to cross anyone's brain in any other sport, or, oh, I might get my knee torn apart by a heel hook, like, you don't think that in other sports. And that's why this sport is different. So like, I did watch that interview with Frankie, and that's like a bit scary, it's like a bit scary, but like I said, that's what the sport is. And if I don't do it to that person, then that person is going to do it to me. And the only thing that's worse than, I don't like the feeling after I'm done fighting of knowing that I hurt someone that bad. But I also, the only thing that sucks more than knowing that you did that to someone else is having it done to you. So,
Sure.
I'm okay with it 10 times out of 10, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Well, you have to be.
Yeah.
If you were me going into the cage, you would lose every time. So you'd be like, "Are you okay? I'm sorry." I just know I don't have it in me, but I'm okay with being that person, that's why I'm on this side of it. But you've spent the majority of your adult life working on the technical aspects and the love of the sport, and really studying it and committing yourself to it. So of course you got to go for it. I don't think anyone will blame you for that. I know we have about 15 minutes left, so I'm going to skip around, but I'm definitely inviting you back on because you're really good.
Thanks. Yeah, people say that, but or not that I'm good, but they say that I'm a deeper speaker, but I don't really feel that way. But I don't know. I guess sometimes when I watch other fighters' interviews, I'm like, oh yeah. Okay, I guess I get it.
Well, I can tell you, Brett Okamoto, who's a buddy of mine, when we caught up in Vegas and we talk every so often, and he's like, "All right, who you got on deck?" He's always checking in with me, and I told him, and he was like, "Oh, he's like Cory's a good one. I
Mm,
think he's a good
that's
interview."
nice
And
of him. Yeah,
then
good.
yeah, he loves you. And then so when I was at Extreme, I was talking to Coach Eddie and then Cody Stamen at the same time, and just kind of catching them up on, because Cody's been on my show. And I was telling him, I got to get back to town because I'm interviewing Cory on Sunday. And then they were both like, oh my God, talk about someone who was like the nicest person to your face, like just the nicest person, like super calm and chill demeanor. But then you get him in the cage and he is an absolute beast, And so,
Yeah. I'm a quiet person, I don't really, I don't do so I coach at high altitude martial arts, and I'm pretty sure,
oh, okay.
a lot of them are very confused as to, like, man, Cory doesn't say anything. It's like, I'm just not much of a talker. I like listening to people talk more than I like talking myself.
You'd make a great therapist. Eddie, I asked Eddie, I'm like, have you worked with him? He's like, I haven't worked with him personally though. Solid guy. Every interaction I've had with him, solid guy. So, it's nice. It's nice that your peers are, they hold you in high regards. I think that says a lot about your character, especially when you're beating up some of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how much value to put on that, to be honest. I think that it's nice when people think that I'm nice, but also I understand that, like, we're fist fighting each other, like I'm not trying to be the nicest person in the world either.
I think it means
I don't
a
know.
lot.
Does it?
I think what do we really have in this world? Forget possessions. We have memories and we have our character. We have the impact that we have on others, how we make others feel. So if the general consensus is that you're making people feel good in your presence, that's amazing. I think in my book, that's like way up here more than anything you could buy me or whatever,
Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah. Okay. So, looking at your record, 6 of your 14 wins are by knockout, 5 by decision, and 3 by submission. And then conversely, you've never been knocked out. Is this something that you wear with pride? I mean, you were talking about your loss with Aljo where he choked you. Would you have taken it less seriously if it was a knockout, or more, or equal? Where are you at?
Kind of equal. I'm glad that I got to learn the lesson that I got to learn by only being choked out, because there's no lasting effects of being choked out. Like, you wake up and it's kind of just like you woke up from a nap. It doesn't feel like a big deal. Where I've had my bell rung a couple times in the training room, and that's is way worse than getting choked unconscious. So I mean, if I'm gonna learn a lesson, I'd rather learn the lesson by getting choked out than by getting knocked out. But I'll tell you what, after I've never felt like I've been cracked like really hard in a fight. But after I fought John Lineker, that was the worst headache I've ever had for the next 2 days in my life. Like, he never hit me like clean or too clean. He hit me clean a couple times, but he never hit me super clean. But where John aims is he aims for kind of the back ear spot. So like I remember like the back of my, like, not the back of my head, but right off to the side of the back of my head, I had like the worst headache for like multiple days. And I mean, everyone's had a headache, and like you're hungover. There's nothing worse than a headache, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than like having a headache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not fun. Okay, so you fought Rafael Assunção, who was also a past guest on my show. I'm just curious now. What do you think of him as a fighter?
Yeah, I like Assunção. When was it? Was his last fight against Garbrandt? That was his last one, huh?
I think so. And then I
Yeah.
mean, it's like he's in Garbrandt's highlight reel forever, right?
Yeah. 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 Um, yeah, I like Sunset. I talked to him after the fight too. He's a nice dude.
Yeah, he's really nice.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I like a Sunsao. I don't really judge anyone in the sport really. Like whether they're a good person, a bad person, or they appear nice or they don't appear nice. Like I don't judge anyone for the way that they're being. Like I said, like we all are putting and formulating our own survival techniques and what we think is going to help us survive the most. And I used to not understand that very well, and now I understand it, a lot better. Now that I've been in the sport for a while, like I used to look at someone like Garbrandt and be like, how's this guy like choking? Like, what did he do? Did he slap TJ or choke him or whatever on the Ultimate Fighter or something?
Uh-huh.
But I was like, how can this guy act so arrogant and act so, like, peacocky all the time? And even with McGregor, I used to think the same things where I'm like, this guy acts like an idiot, And then it took me a couple of years of being like at this level where I was like, oh, like they're just doing that because they think that it helps them survive,
Mhm.
and that's why they're doing that. 10 times out of 10 in my experience, if anyone's been a little bit, however, before the fight, afterwards they're always cool. I've
Mhm.
always had good experiences with everyone after every single one of my fights. um so it's like everyone, I think it's like an unspoken rule. You're not supposed to say like, hey, we're all just kind of doing this, like just for show or whatever. But
Yeah.
I personally don't do it for entertainment. Like I try to let the person know that like, hey, I'm not here to play any games. And if you're going to come into the cage and play some games, then like you're going to get hurt. Like I try to put off that type of energy. But as far as like, judging whether they're nice or mean, like all of that is just kind of like survival techniques, in my opinion.
Mm.
But yeah,
Okay.
every single person that I've ever met, I think in the UFC that I wasn't fighting or right after I had fought has been cool, really cool.
That seems to be the way. It's almost like if you fight and you're not cool with your opponent after, it's not a good look. Am I
Well, and it's
right?
just like, well, yeah, and it's like, what's the point?
Right.
what's
It's
the
over.
what's the point? Yeah, what's the point? At that point, you're probably just not being a nice person because you're not a nice person,
Right.
Uh, because like what would motivate you to be a mean person to someone after you've already, had the experience of like competing against them? It's like, it's done, you know?
It's done. Let it go. Totally. Fight you're most proud of.
The John Lineker fight. Um, for because that was one, I wasn't the greatest at not being scared back then. I was still dealing with a lot of fear. Not that I don't now, still sometimes, but definitely because John was my third UFC fight. I think he
Mhm.
was my third fight in the UFC, and um, it was like my third fight in the UFC, and I was fighting John Lineker, who was a top 10 guy. And it only kind of came about because my opponent had pulled out and he was supposed to fight Cruz, and Cruz had pulled out of his fight. And then they told me on like 3 weeks notice that I was supposed to fight John Lineker. And I like asked my coaches and I was like, you guys think that this is a good idea? Like, and because we try to be good about like building fighters and taking smart fights when it's the right time to take smart fights and this and that. And I was like, all right, if you guys think it's a good idea, I'll do it. But I remember being really scared to fight someone that hits that hard. I was like, if he connects good, I'm definitely, looking at the lights when I wake up. So that was one of the more scarier ones. And I think I just did a really good job in that fight. Like, I think that if you're going to beat John Lineker without, knocking him out or submitting him, you do it the way that I beat him. And
Mhm.
I was really proud that I was like able to be that nervous and still go out and just be like, and perform the way that I did. Like, I was super proud of myself for that one.
Mm. That's good. That's good that you were
Mm-hmm.
able to walk away with that. Okay, now fight you would do over again. Probably the Aljo fight.
Probably. Also, though, like the things that I learned in that fight, have, they're the reason that I knocked out Maurice and that I knocked out Frankie. So like, I'm not going to be upset about the thing that led to the two most impressive knockouts that I've ever had.
Mhm.
I'm just not going to be upset about that. But if I could change anything, if you asked me 24 hours after that last fight when I lost against Sterling, I would 100% absolutely change the outcome of that fight, no doubt.
Yeah. Did you go home and like when you're, let's face it, you're grieving after a loss, right? So like when you're
Hmm.
grieving, you're ruminating, you're replaying everything in your mind. Are you just like sitting there in silence and like in fetal position or like, like what's your
Yeah,
process?
yeah. I try to keep myself busy. I was
Okay.
working on my yard. And this might sound silly, but you kind of feel just like a piece of shit, like you feel like a piece of shit, especially when you lose like as embarrassingly as like the way that I lose. So I was actually gonna like hire someone to come like do the yard work that I needed. I remember being like, nah man, losers do their own yard work.
No.
So I just did a bunch of yard work. Uh and that kept me pretty busy for a couple of weeks. And then, besides like the occasional, staring off into space and thinking about it and, waking up in the middle of the night and being like, oh shit, I wish I didn't wake up, because that was the
Mm,
first thing on my brain.
yeah.
You just deal with it. It's like anything, with time, things go on. And regardless of how many times you tell yourself the right thing when you're sad, that, time is what you need.
Time. I hate that, right? Because we
I
want to
know.
control
Yeah.
it. We want to be like, all right, I'm gonna do yard work. I'm gonna go, distract myself. I'm gonna
Yeah.
hang out with this person, whatever. But like it's nothing. It's just time.
It's
Time. But
just,
I have a
it's
theory
just
about
time.
that though. The more you can switch out the memories in your short-term like consciousness, the faster you'll recover, right?
Say that one more time.
So if I sit at home for a month, I think the grieving process is going to take longer. But if
Mm.
I go out throughout that month and I provide my brain and my psyche a bunch of experiences to process, it's going to flush out the hurt and that memory a lot faster.
Yep.
What do
I,
you think?
I I feel this. Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like you could fast forward that initial like shock of it all,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and then you can kind of deal with it at a much moderate intensity than than when something first happens. Yeah, I 100% agree.
I wanted to ask about your experience when you win versus lose and how much support you receive externally. So, obviously, friends, people who have your phone number, they're probably checking on you either way, congratulating you or like, hey, are you okay? But what about social media? Do you, and I make assumptions, but do you get more love when you win or when you lose, or is it equal?
Um, uh, I didn't check my phone at all after I lost, to be honest. I just didn't look at it for like a couple weeks because I was like,
Well,
I know what's on there. Like I know what I'd be commenting if I was a troll, and
right.
uh with the winning, yeah, of course. I watched the last knockout like a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
You're
not gonna
like,
lie, like I watched it a lot of
yeah.
times. Yeah, I was like, wow, that was really nasty. And then you get sucked into that like kind of endorphin kick you get every time that something nice is said about you on the internet or whatever. So it's almost harder to stay off your phone after you win than it is when you lose. But yeah, the social media stuff, it's the same as it's kind of the same way that I was feeling earlier too, where it's like I don't put a ton of value on that stuff, the nice things or the negative things.
Mhm.
um just because the more value I give to people that are saying nice things, I feel like the more value I also give to the people that are saying the mean things. And I don't, going back to identity, I don't want people on the internet telling
Yes.
me what my identity is. Like I'm in charge of that, and
Mhm.
or at least as much as I can be in charge of that. And that's kind of where I stand with this social media stuff. Is I think it's great, to be able to share my life with people and have people care about it. But as far as, anyone's opinion about the way that I do things. I try not to value the good or the bad of it.
I saw this meme that I saved. I wanted to read it. It's a photo of an egg, and it goes, "Did you know that if an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends? But if it's broken from the inside force, life begins. Great things always begin from inside."
I like that. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Everything's on the inside, you know. So Curtis lost last week, you know, in pretty devastating way.
Yeah.
And I remember there's like a big uproar on our team, at least, of like people really trolling him and like being really,
He got
really
it bad.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, and they came up to me and they were like, "Man, you see what they're saying? You see what they're saying?" And I was like, "No, you know, I don't." And they're really worked up. And in my head, I'm kind of like, I remember I told one guy that was really worked up, my buddy Matt, and I was like, "Man, if you don't look at that stuff, it doesn't exist." Like
Right.
none of that stuff exists in your mind. Like none of that stuff exists in your mind unless you put it there. And yeah, you know, like everything works within. It's like whatever is inside of there is inside of there, and regardless of what's outside of there, it's not going to be inside unless you put it in there.
Unless you allow it to. So Aljo's got this title fight. You're in the number 2 spot. I've already read everything out there about you being like, "I'm next." So, I mean, do you think it's a sure thing? I mean, it seems like you would be up next, but any projections on what's to come?
Yeah, I don't think anything's a sure thing. I think I did my best. I put myself in the best spot, and I gave myself the best argument. I knocked out the number 1 guy, and I knocked out the number 4 guy. And the guy that's underneath me, Garbrandt, the number 3 guy, is up in the air. I don't know what he's doing, if he's fighting lower weight class or what
He
he's
called
doing.
out Aldo.
Oh, okay. So he's calling out, you know, people that are ranked lower. So, you know, I did my best. I put myself in the best position. I'm trying to do as much things as I can to kind of, you know, get myself out there, because I know that that's an important part too. So if they give it to me, great. I don't really know, honestly, the inner workings of everything. I don't know how much say the champ actually gets in who he's fighting next. And I don't really know, you know, I don't know how much popularity matters. You know, I think that I'm one of the more popular guys in the division right now, but I don't know if I bring enough name value for a title shot yet, or whatever the UFC is thinking. But you know, logistically and on paper, I think that I definitely, dare I say, deserving. But yeah, that's where I stand. And if not, then, you know, if I with Dillashaw is fine with me too. If I with Garbrandt is fine with me too. Give me someone who has a big name. If you know, if we're playing the fame game, then give me someone famous, and I'll do my best to, you know, knock them out just as bad, and then I'll fight for the title. You know, I'm young, 28. I don't need to.
Yes.
I don't need to be acting crazy yet. Maybe when I'm a little bit older, then I can start acting a little bit crazier. But right now, I think I'm in a good spot.
I like your lane. You're just true to yourself. And I think you have a big enough name. You're definitely respected. You know, when you bring up how much of a say the title holder has, I talked to Francis Ngannou about that when I interviewed him, you know, months ago. And we were talking about, do you think you're going to be up next for the title? And Stipe was public about like, "I already fought Ngannou, give me someone else," you know? And Francis is like, "I'm in the number 1 spot. It's not up to him to choose." He's like, this is the way it's supposed to be. And he ended up getting it. So hopefully, you know, things work out for you similarly.
I think they will. And like I said, or I guess I didn't say, but I have said in the past, there's so many good fights in this division that it's kind of like, even if it's not for the title, it's still going to be a huge fight, my next one, regardless. And it's just going to make the title fight that much bigger when I do fight for the title. So, you know, I'm in no rush. I'll stay in my lane, and I'll still act sane as long as I need to act sane. And if I need to start acting crazy, then maybe I'll start acting crazy in the future. But for now, I'm in a good spot.
Yes. Okay. Now, before I let you go, you are so deep and I love it. You're so evolved and aware and open. And I have so much respect for that. I'm wondering, What words of wisdom do you have for the people out there who maybe are working on their work ethic? They're working towards a goal. They've got it up here, but it's kind of hard to execute. What do you say to them?
It's time, right? It's time. It's not, I know a million people that think that they're the hardest worker in the room. I know a million of them. It's not about that. It's about spending time and being really thoughtful and being really present during the time that you're spending. And I think that that's, I would attribute a lot of my success to the amount of thoughtfulness that I bring into my training. It's not like, I don't just go in and, rep out the day. It's like it's a lot of spending a lot of time thinking about it and a lot of time drilling it. And it's not always like the hardest physical thing in the world, but it is a lot of focus and a lot of attention. And it makes me have to go home and watch something really exciting so that it keeps my attention. But I would say that it's that, and it's just, clock as many hours as you can. They don't need to be the hardest physical working hours, but just clock them. Whether do your best. And if 60% is what you got in the day, then clock 60%. And if you got 100% that day, then clock that 100%. But it's just about clocking hours.
Okay. And be intentional when you are putting in the time, right? Because it's easy sometimes, I think, like you said, it's easy to go to the gym and just like put in the time. But if you really maximize your effort for the time that you're there, you'll achieve your results a lot faster, right?
Yeah. Everything is an art. And the more thoughtful you are, the better your art's going to be. If you go in and you treat, the time that you're spending without respect, you're not, it's going to take you longer. So just, be thoughtful and show your time respect.
Do you want to see my art?
Let's see it.
Okay. So this is just something I did to so this is probably 3 or 4 times, and it's not anything like, it's just, me adding dots to a canvas,
No, that's awesome. That looks really cool.
Thank you. I can't remember if this is I think, actually it's upside down.
That looks like it took a lot of time.
Yeah, but it's like I do it while I have something on TV or, I'm on speakerphone with someone, and, like it's kind of therapeutic,
Yeah, cool.
So that's my project, that and making jewelry, and, I have to have my like creative outlet too.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, Cory Sandhagen, you're awesome. You are definitely welcome back anytime. People love my group shows, so I might like invite you back with someone that you're already friends with or have an interest in being on a show with. So I'll be in touch for sure. Yeah. But give everyone your Instagram handle so they know how to find you.
Yep. Just enter the Sandman 135. And just watch my fights. I just want people to watch my fights. That's really what I care about.
Okay. I love that. Guys, you can find me at the Jenna Ben Show on Instagram and on YouTube.